Hey, welcome back to the SC-100 course. In this video, we are going to be talking and covering Azure management groups, which help you organize and govern your Azure tenant. So, what are Azure management groups? Azure management groups are logical containers for organizing multiple subscriptions, aka multiple landing zones. Allow you to apply governance, policy, and role based access at scale, automatically include subscription and resources under their hierarchy. So why would you want to use management groups? Well, they centralize policy enforcement, such as like security and compliance. They enable RBAC delegation at broad or narrow scopes. They support enterprise level governance strategies, and they automate resource management through inheritance. Now, management groups essentially are like folders. Right? So if you think of your My Documents on your computer and you have, your pictures in a subfolder, and you may have some healthcare documents in another, or you have bills in another. That's kind of how you could look at your manager groups. But from a tenant level, from a cloud perspective, you are using those management groups essentially as guardrails for environments or certain areas within your tenant. I run into clients all the time, and they all, they aren't using management groups, or they're using management groups, but they're not really using it into its full capability. You have to really look at your environment and say, okay, well, what am I doing here? Do I have different environments such as dev test prod? Do I have different business units in my environment where, based on the business unit, then there are certain regulatory compliance? So you may be in some type of agriculture company, or you are in a company that's dealing with the government, but not all your company is dealing with the government. Well, you may want to have a management group for that gov section, so that this way you can apply regulatory compliance to those specific areas, and you can do it from a management group perspective. So it's one of the reasons why I wanted to go through Defender for Cloud, so I could talk about governance, but then also in this video, we're moving from the Defender Cloud to do more governance within the tenant and using other tools. So this way you can enforce that governance and those guardrails for your organization. So this is an example management group. So I got this from the Microsoft page. The tenant root group is what everyone has. Your tenant root is the top hierarchy of your Azure environment. Then you can go down into different units, or I should say management groups, or whatever you want to create. So right here we have Contoso, which if you read a lot of Microsoft documentation, you'll see them always do Contoso as an example. Then you have platform, landing zones, decommission, and sandbox. So sandbox is obviously a testing area. Decommission is a really good management group structure to have, so that this way you can stay within compliance and you can still have those subscriptions there just in case you need to get audited. Landing zones, then you have platform. Within the platform management group, we have identity, you have management, and you have connectivity. So the platform management group tends to be a management group that's kind of shared through other management groups. So, you have your identity subscriptions, you have your management, you have your networking management group that other resources may use. Then you have your landing zones, right? You have SAP, Corp, and Online, and then you have Decommission and Sandbox. And if you could see under each of those management groups, you'll see the yellow is the subscriptions, right? So those are AKA the landing zones. So RBAC and policy inheritance. So role assignments and policies are applied to a management group, flow down to subscriptions, then to resource groups and resources, and inheritance can be overridden at a lower scope. So some of the common use cases for management groups is to apply security baselines across all subscriptions, assign centralized security or compliance roles, isolate development and the production environments, enforce cost controls using policy. All right, so now let's talk about some of the key benefits, which is your scalable governance for enterprises, reduce admin overhead, integrated with Azure policy and RBAC, and flexibility hierarchy for different org structures. So I decided to give you all a different management group structure because I felt like, let me show you the Microsoft one, but at the same time, let me create one for you. I've done tons of management group designs for different businesses. And I always try to figure out what's going on in your business. What are you all trying to accomplish? What different business units are there? And most of all, what are your challenges right now? And then from there, when I have the challenges, what I'll do is I'll create the design for the management group, and then I'll bring it back to the customer. And when I bring it back to them, they might say, yeah, this is good, or hey, what about this, or what about that, something I may missed, during discovery, because you only have discovery for like a week, right? Or, 2 weeks sometimes. But there's only so much you can talk about. So this is one of my pathways, and this is what I want to show you. It's just a way to have a consultative mindset. So once I, present it to them, they come back and say, this is good, or hey, we might need something for, this business unit. Then I will reiterate, and then I'll present it to them again, and then we finally get to a point where we have a management group design. But we want to make sure when you're designing a management group, you're thinking about scalability, because everything is changing very quickly now. We have AI, we have so much things, new technologies coming out, that businesses have to be agile in order for them to survive. So for that case, we want to design a management group in the right way. So as you see in this management group, I have the root, and then here we have a structured naming convention for our management groups. So we have MG for management group, dash dev, dash test, dash prod, and then we have a decommissioned. From under MG dev, you see there's a subscription sub dash dev dash 2, and then under MG test you have sub dash test dash 1 for the subscription, and then in MG prod, in that management group, you have different subscriptions you can have in there, such as sub dash prod dash 1. So this is a naming convention I literally came up with. Obviously it would probably be a little bit more detailed than this, or depending on your organization, but this is how you would set it up. And the great thing about management groups, if we look at management group dash dev, if we apply certain policies and regulatory stuff at that dev level, every subscription that falls within it will follow that specific policy or those regulatory compliance. So we haven't covered Azure policies yet. I will talk about that a little bit later in other videos, but essentially you can look at Azure policies as laws. These are the laws that you must follow. If not, then something will happen, right? So it might deny you from doing something, it might modify what you're doing, or it might, add on to or append. It depends, but I want to kind of go into that a little bit later. But just know that this is a good way to structure your management group, so that this way you have guardrails in place to make sure that things that are allowed and things that aren't. So if I were to apply a regulatory compliance at the root management group level, then that would cascade down to all the management groups. And if I were to apply a policy or a regulatory compliance at the MG-dev level, then every subscription within MG-dev would now adhere to my policy or the regulatory compliance standards that I enforced at the MG-dev level. Another thing I want you to look at is the MG-decommissioned. If you see, it says sub-dev1, and in MG-dev manager group, I have dev2 as a subscription. That decommissioned is going to take all your old subscriptions, and they will reside there for however time you need them to reside there for you to stay compliant and meet your regulatory compliance needs. So this is just a quick overview of a management group, so that this way you have a better understanding of how they're designed, and then also some of the capabilities of management groups. Okay, so that wraps up this video on management groups. Now that you know what management groups are, we can now go into how to create a management group in the next video. So I want to thank you all for watching. If you haven't done so already, please smash that like and subscribe button. Here at Cloud Scholars, my goal is to get you from scholar to consultant, and of course, consultant to expert. Thank you, and see you next time.